Hey guys, it's Max, and today I'm talking a little bit about identity in terms of pre-transition and once transitioning. Recently I came across a term that some people who are trans use, which is male to male, versus maybe female to male might be something that a lot of people hear for trans men. Basically, people who identify as male to male, it's the idea that they know that they were male from a very young age, and they never truly identified as female. It never matched. And then for other people, it's like there was this transition away. And I think this is really interesting, and I think there are a lot of people who that does fit for, and there's a lot of people that doesn't. I think for me personally, I'd say pre-transition, I did identify as female, so I would say that I am female to male. And I know, I think in a last video I talked about if I play back that narrative and rewrite the story and try to connect pieces in a different way, then I can see where maybe threads of maybe I didn't think like a female or I didn't feel feminine, but in the end of the day, I did identify as a female. And as I said, I very staunchly defended that to people if they questioned if I was questioning my gender. One thing people often talk about with past identity is the idea of a dead name. And I think for me, I do have obviously an old name, and for me that's just what it is, an old name. It's a past self, it's the way that I lived for a long time, but I don't hold regret about it, and I don't hate it. I don't hate who I was, because honestly it's still me. I'm just presenting more in alignment, and I understand maybe where some of that friction was in that past self and how I can move forward without that friction, but with all the good parts still. So for a lot of people, maybe they're having to present by female, they feel stuck in this female identity, they're being called she, it's very much that way. But for me, I was female and I identify that way, but so often I was actually, when I was identifying as female, misgendered because people would think I was a guy. In a lot of ways, I did not embody a lot of femininity my entire life, and that was even perceived by other people. I don't know everyone's experience, but at least for me, the female presentation of myself was androgynous at best. I mean, I had short hair since I was 13 years old. Freshman year in high school, lopped it off. I've dressed very middle of the path for a long time. Because of that, people around me have just assumed that I'm a boy. And I think to make up for the fact that my voice was high, people just always assumed I was younger. Oh, wait, you're 20? You sound 15. Oh, they're thinking I'm a guy. And it's just interesting now, coming out as trans, being okay, people keep gendering me that way, you're doing it right now, even though for a long time when I did identify as female, it was annoying when I wasn't gendered right. If you're in a bathroom and it's just kind of awkward when someone's not sure if you're supposed to be in there, but you're going in there. And I think a lot of trans people have this as they're transitioning to their new identity too, that people are still questioning where you're supposed to be. So it's even before I started my transition and adopting the gender that I feel more comfortable in, I was still experiencing that same awkward tension in public spaces because people weren't sure. People thought I was a guy, people thought I was a trans woman, people thought I was a trans man. Maybe a few people thought I was a female, a lot of people thought I was non-binary. Everyone thought there's something going on, and at the time I was there's nothing going on. So it was irritating, it was hard, and at the same time I didn't really defend myself. I wasn't no, I'm a woman, stop. It's because I did not hold so tightly to that identity that it was just yeah, this is the label I have, I'm just gonna be me, so can you just let this go, and I know where I'm supposed to be, let's move on, I'm not gonna correct you. I wouldn't fault people for that, because it's if I can see that in myself, how can I blame you for seeing that in me? Did the world know I was trans before I did? I think now, as I transition, it's if someone were to misgender me and call me a female, I'd be a lot more whoa, no, sorry, it's he. Because I care a lot more that I want to be perceived the way that I present and the way that I am. I want to be seen as myself. I think the one difficulty with having this very androgynous past self is it in some ways makes this initial part of transition harder, because for so long, like as a female, I was this androgynous entity that now that I'm like, okay, I'm really gonna embrace my true self, it is hard to be like, the only thing that seems to have changed in a lot of people's lives who are viewing me is like, oh, you just want us to call you by a new name and use a new pronoun. And it's like, no, maybe I want to explore more of my masculinity. You see yourself as passing when people are constantly misgendering you when you're presenting as female as male, but now that you want to be as male, it's like, oh my god, are they gonna see it? And as I see what trans men on testosterone for a while can start to be like, it's like, oh god, am I really passing? I don't know. And it starts to break that wall. My last point on this, in this channel, I hope to eventually do some more poetry. I dabble a little bit with spoken word. I'm no slam poet, but I have some poems, and I've written a few about transitioning, and I have a few just from the past. And one that I have in the past that I had only ever gotten like the first maybe 30 seconds of and never got past that point was one about androgyny. Basically, it was a poem talking a bit about all the instances of this androgyny that I embodied, confusing people around me, and how that was starting to make me feel, but I could never really get past how it was starting to make me feel, so that a lot of it is just the beginnings of what people were saying. Anyways, point is, I'm hoping to make another video where I go through and read the poem line by line, reflect on it, see what's funny in hindsight now that I am more settled in my gender identity, see what's still true, just see if it was good. At some point, incorporate some more spoken word into this channel, either just in presented poems or, poem reviews. I also have one that I wrote for my dad for Father's Day, and it definitely is something that's going to be in the bowels of time, because it's called Daddy's Girl, and oh god, no, not father like son now, and I don't know if I can rewrite the poem that way, so maybe I'll just share it as a dead archive, but we'll see how that goes. Just a quick check-in, and hope you enjoy the topic.